I started out on classical because I guess when you study violin and viola, which I also studied for most of my college time, that's how they teach you. They teach you how to play the instrument and how to play classical music.
Mm-hmm.
But somewhere along the line, I had a feeling that my goal in life was not to sound exactly like the other 11 violas in a section of an orchestra. So that's when I realized I was interested in doing something a little bit different with the instrument. I still love to play classical music, and I love to play string quartets, particularly because you're having a conversation.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Each instrument plays their own part, but you're like talking to each other.
Mm.
So that's my favorite thing.
And that's more or less like an ensemble concept.
Right, a small ensemble.
Right. So what made you want to go away from being part of an ensemble to an individual?
Well, I like to, I just want to be able to play a bunch of songs without having to read them. When I was maybe in junior high school, my dad started to lose his eyesight, and what he has looked like it might be hereditary. So I figured, I don't want to not be able to play music if I can't see it, so I figured I better start to learn to play kinds of music that you just learn by ear.
Mm-hmm.
So that led me to just start learning tunes. And like, for instance, I just played 2 hours just solo, walking around playing for different people.
Do you remember, like, for example, what was the first tune that you decided to memorize without using music?
The first song I learned to memorize, I think, was Misty.
Misty. And how does so in this conversion process, how does that sound on your violin?
Violin, we'll see.
Right. Well, so now you're coming into this individualistic way of you doing music, and you got excited about that?
Well, what I got excited about was I started to play rock and roll on the violin. So I got a few rock bands, and then I got a country band, and I realized I wanted to play anything that would have a violin, or a lot of kinds of music that wouldn't normally have a violin, like rock and roll.
Mm-hmm.
So I kind of liked to pioneer in whatever I was doing. And, if getting to play some rock and roll meant I had to play some country and western, so I play some country and western, but then when I got to the rock and roll tunes, I get to make up my own part, because there wasn't one.
Which ones do you like the best?
Oh boy, that's a tough question. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know if I can answer that.
Yeah, but you started off with like a tune like Misty. Would you say that's a ballad type?
Oh yeah, it's definitely a ballad. I think the only reason I picked that song was because at that time my sister was engaged to a guy, and that was their song. So I used to hear it a lot. So.
Okay, so now you switched from. Well, you had a purpose in being an individual, trying to do the individual. Then you got into from the classical to something like jazz. Now, how did you get to the jazz part?
Well, the jazz part, and to me, I always was interested in it, but it wasn't until I heard my first Stefan Grappelli record that I realized, oh yeah, wow, I'd love to be able to do that. He just brought so much joy. He just exuded such happiness when he played. I feel like you could tell me World War III was breaking out and I'd still be grinning ear to ear. He just played. So that was sort of my goal, was to play with that kind of spirit.
So do you get that same spirit when you listen to Stefan?
Oh yeah, and I try to get that when I play. I don't know if I always succeed, but I do try. And then, but I didn't really start playing jazz until some years later, when there was a duo of this woman who was playing jazz with this guitar player, and she moved, and he needed a replacement. So I kind of, okay, well, let me try this. And that's how I got into it. Mm-hmm. And I just took it from there.
Do you mind giving us a little Stefan on your violin?
Well, let's see. I'm trying to think one of the first things I remember hearing him play is Sweet Georgia Brown.
That's right.
Okay.
Let's talk about now. In your new album, you have Daydreams by Ellington.
Yeah.
What's so exciting about that?
Well, a lot of the songs that I play, like if I've written them, I want to get them on there. But some of the standards that I put on there, they're just things that maybe I've played in a duo or group situation, and I just really liked the song. I thought it was beautiful.
Mm-hmm. So you like Daydreams? Has no special meaning?
That song in and of itself didn't. It just was a beautiful song, and I just enjoyed playing it, so that's how I got into that one.
You also have Gershwin on your new album.
Yeah, well, of course, Gershwin's great.
Yeah.
He just wrote a million great songs.
Right. You picked Summertime.
I picked Summertime. And sometimes my motivation for putting a song on an album might just be that I've played it and people say, "Oh, do you have that on any of your CDs? I would buy that CD." And that was one of those songs. So I figured, well, it's about time I put it on a CD.
Well, it's on your CD called Exit 19.
Okay.
And there is a little history behind that. Do you want to tell us?
Exit 19, especially for those of you who live in Baltimore. If you grew up in the vicinity of the Baltimore Beltway before Exit 19 was complete, for years when I was growing up, it said Exit 19, Future. And it always sounded to me very enticing as a kid. Well, what would happen if you took that exit? And so that stuck in my mind. Of course, now it's 795, but when I was growing up, it just said future.
Yeah.
And I was just sort of diddling around. When I write songs, I'll write segments of things, and I'll write ideas down and wait till I have enough to make it and build it into a whole song. But I realize when I'm playing this, it sounds like you're kind of driving down the road.
Yeah.
It starts out like this. So it kind of sounds like going down the road, and I thought, that's Exit 19.
Well, Susan, you are I know you play at private places, but people would be interested to know where are some of the public places that you perform at.
Okay, well, I play quite frequently at Kramer Books in D.C., which is not the greatest venue to go to. It's basically a bookstore with a cafe in the back, and if you sit down in the cafe in the back, you can't hear us play, but if you're in the bookstore, you can, or if you sit up in the balcony. But some really cool places that I play sometimes are like Blues Alley. So I have an upcoming performance there on September the 26th. That's a Wednesday night, which actually it happens to be part of a Stefan Grappelli festival.
Ooh, right.
So there'll be like 2 or 3 local jazz violinists, and then on the weekend Mark O'Connor will be the anchor. So I want everybody to come to that.
Yeah.
September 26th is a Wednesday night, but what the heck, come on out, even if it is a school night.
Right.
And then I'm doing a concert at the Sculpture Garden in D.C. It's like at 9th and Constitution on August 17th. And that's like 5 to 8:30. I think it's free and open to the public. And then I frequently play at 49 West in Annapolis.
So if people are interested in knowing or following you, how would they do that?
Well, there's a couple ways. One, you can get on my website, which is Violin Dreams, like the instrument violin and the word dreams as one word.com, and under tour, which is really my gig schedule. It's also a way you can email me from that, like susan@violindreams.com. And you can email me and say, hey, put me on your emailing list, and I'll put you on there, and whenever I'm going to be playing somewhere public, I generally let people know about it. So I'll be happy to hear from you and add you to my list, or if you want to just check my website, and you can also buy the CD from there.
So since your album's called Future, what's the future for you? What do you have planned for your future in music?
What do I have planned? I don't know. Well, it's like the jazz musician who won the lottery one time, and somebody said, what are you going to do now that you won the lottery? He says, I'm just going to keep gigging till the money runs out.
So, Susan, would you like to conclude this with a little bit on how old is this violin?
It's not that old. It's actually built in Baltimore by a former Baltimore Symphony member. can't remember. Why can't I think of his name right now? I have to look at my violin to come up with his name. I've just been playing. Kevin Cardiff built it, so it was 1984. I think.
Kevin
So
Cardiff.
it's a relatively new instrument.
Yeah. But this is your prime instrument that you use, correct?
This is sort of what I call my good violin. If I'm
Yeah.
going to play a classical concert, I use this instrument. If I'm going to play solo, I play it. No, if I'm going to play with a jazz group, I need something with a pickup on it. So I have another violin that's got more electronics on it.
I see.
So,
Yeah. So how would you play us out in this one?
oh boy. Well, you know, I frequently play out at these performances when I perform for like senior citizens, and I'm by myself.
Yeah.
I call this my impersonation of the world's smallest big band playing Glenn Miller's In the Mood. I can do that.
Okay.
Okay.
Bravo.
But it's hard to play jazz without a rhythm section. So
I know.
That's something, and it's also hard to play in an armchair. So
Okay.
if something doesn't sound right, that's what's going on. So.
But you want to pay any compliments to the other musicians on your album?
Oh, absolutely. On my most recent CD, Exit 19, I actually have 5 guitar players on there. Let's see, I have Paul Wingo, who plays at Bertha's every Tuesday night. I have Brian Litz, I have Pete Fields and Jerry Kunkel, and then I have one guest appearance from Chick Hall Jr. on one tune.
Okay. What does he play?
He's a guitar player.
He's a guitar.
And he owed me a solo because I played on his CD and he was
Okay.
going to pay me. I said, I don't want to take your money. He said, well, I'll play on your next CD. So I called him up, and so I
There you have it.
collected my debt. And then on bass, I have 2 different bass players. I have Bob Abbott on a lot of it, and I have James King on a few tunes. And I have jazz cello on the title cut, Exit 19. I have a jazz string quartet.
And you direct all this. You write this. You write the parts, everything.
Yeah, well, most of the guitar players, they're coming up with their own parts.
Right.
Everybody enhances the music in
I
their
see.
own way. And then my husband, Tom Jones, is playing drums.
Okay.
And everything.
Okay. Well, thanks, Susan.
Well, thank you for the interview.
Okay.